Welcome to Advocacy and Hope. I am your host, Amy Post. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Again, I just always thank you for your time, and that's the most important thing right now. You have a lot of choices, and just being able to tune in. I'm new at this. This has been just such a great experience. So thank you for your time and your support. Have a great guest today. We've had David on before. I love doing this now and really kind of seeing where people are now. What are they up to now? He's been such an incredible individual. So can't wait to have him on. But before I do that, I just want to go over one more opportunity. I launched my book May 7th. It's Out of the Gray into the Light. It's a mother's memoir of advocacy and hope. This has been probably the biggest stretch that I have had to do in my entire life was, reaching into my heart and writing this book. So if you would do me a favor, and if you haven't already, pick up a couple copies for you and a friend. You can get it on my website at amypost.com. You can also just go straight to Amazon and purchase it. And I'd love for you to leave a review if you would. I would be so grateful if you would do that. But if you would just pick this up, take a read. It really dives deep into my story, and I want everybody to feel very comfortable telling your story and know that you aren't alone. And there's people out there that genuinely love and care about you and want to just bring you in. And that's another reason, the book has been really successful. It's really just allowing people to know that they aren't alone, and telling their story is something super cool. And I notate my daughter a lot in the book, and she's just a force to be reckoned with now because she has such a great story and knows, her purpose and what she's going to do in life. She's just going to set everything on fire. So that being said, I'd love you to grab a book, go to my website. You can learn a little bit more about me if you're unfamiliar. And then definitely wanted to let you guys know I'm sending emails out today if you're on our newsletter list or on my email list for anything else for the community. And we're going to try to put it on social media, I think today, but I am working with an incredible group to launch a brand new event for Make-A-Wish. And if you're not familiar with Make-A-Wish, I don't even know how many years they've been around, but it's just such a great organization. My daughter was a Make-A-Wish kid when she was 4. And we've created a brand new event. It is in St. Louis, Missouri. It is Thursday evening, July 25th. We will have celebrities, sports individuals, lots and lots of cool things. It'll be a casino night. So a lot of fun. We're trying to get sponsors, anything that you would want to donate. And then also if you would like to attend, we're selling tables. They go from 500 up to 10,000 a table. So we'll have more information on that, but that's going to be really great. So, all right, without further ado, I would love to introduce David. David, thank you for coming on the show again. I just appreciate you so much.
Oh, it's an honor. I'm happy to be here, Amy.
Thank you. So David was on the show. David, when was it? Was it end of last year or the first of this year, maybe?
Yes. I don't remember. Between your schedule and my schedule, it's all a blur. But we've stayed in touch at least. I know you were on my podcast, and that was an honor. And then I was on yours, and then now we're catching up today. So
So I think, what we did in the beginning was dive into your experience, with your health and how you got through that. I think just your resilience, your determination to figure it out and get through it, and all the while powering through it and being highly successful. So I know that was a really powerful podcast. Anybody that wants to go back and see that, it is on YouTube and Spotify. But today I really wanted to take an opportunity to take it to the next level and really see what you're up to now and kind of dive into your business. David is a successful author, a podcast host of Remarkable People. Like he said, I was on his podcast. It's just wildly successful. And I really just can't wait to kind of dive in a little bit more, to learn a little bit more about that and your business currently, and just giving us some, giving the audience some pearls in regards to, your biggest successes and just kind of how to navigate. So tell us what you're up to now.
Man, so that's a complex question. There's actually a health update since we spoke. I can talk about the podcast. I can talk about the business, and God's always good. Mm-hmm. So wherever you want me to start, I will. But you said with the business. So
the business, yeah.
So business is, money's a tool, and that tool funds the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
My business is doing great, and we've been around, I've been working for companies, helping them grow and consulting my whole career. But I started under my own umbrella in 2012, but I purposely kept it to a one-man show. And just recently, God was convicting my heart, like it's time to grow. And it started growing like crazy. So in the past just 6 months, um, business has tripled, and I had to get employees, and I'm still holding back. No advertising, just word of mouth. Just you focus on a client, do the right thing, do a great job. They refer more people. But before I turn business away or give it to my friends, now I'm actually like, okay, it's time to take it on and grow and build an organization.
Mm-hmm. And so you said, what, 2012 when your business started, and tell the audience just a little bit more about your exact business and how you've been consulting and how you help these companies, be successful and grow.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because even though I've helped large companies become even more successful. I've helped small businesses become successful, but I always kind of self-sabotage myself. So what I do is I go into companies that were either going solvent or bankrupt, and I turn them around. So I just basically look at the data, see where their real goal was, realistic goal, where they were realistically at, and then I'd reverse engineer the plan, and then I'd help them get there. And normally it's within sales and marketing. Manufacturing I get into, production, but my core was sales and marketing. So I did that. Somebody can go to LinkedIn, check out my profile. They can see you know, I work for great organizations. I work for, Truck Vault. I work for Armor Holdings, BAE. I worked for PACA Point Blank Body Armor. I worked for some great companies, but we helped them grow. And then when I started doing it myself, and I just consult all these companies, what I was doing is the same thing. Just it's scale. Like if you build a shed, if you build a house, or if you build a mansion, your fundamentals of building are the same. It's just a different scale. So when I was going through these, I was learning that it doesn't matter if we were building a small, you know, home business, a local HVAC company, or if we were building a monster body armor company. It doesn't matter. It's the same principles that you apply to everything. And that's just it. When I thought I was a functional idiot, I thought I was a step above Forrest Gump intellectually until I was in my mid to late 30s. And that's when I realized that, like, how I think is not common. And it blows my mind still to this day. But when people talk with me and I tell them the plan, they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. It's not rocket science. It's not like reinventing the wheel. It's just good fundamentals put into practice and then adjusting on the way.
I love that. And I think, I've been in medical sales for 20 some years, helping, med spas and plastic surgery centers grow. And I agree with you. Sometimes it's very common, and we have to just kind of take a step back and simplify it. What, if there was one or two things, did you find a commonality within what these companies were doing incorrectly in regards to sales and marketing, or was it all across the board?
No, so I see patterns and I look for patterns, and men lie, math doesn't. I don't. Years ago, God put that in my head, and it's held in every aspect of life. Men lie, math doesn't. So when I go into a company, an owner or a CEO, the whole board can tell me how great this company is, but I don't believe it till I research it. And people come into an organization with pride and bias, and it's not always misintentioned, but it's there. So I look at what's real, and I look at the top competitors. And the other thing too is, if somebody doesn't want to be number one, I won't work with them, because it's not about winning, it's about being the best you can be. So like if we have children, if my child's best is a C and they work hard, I'm proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if my child gets an A easy and doesn't push themselves, I'm disappointed in them. So it's the same thing with companies and people I work with. I want to work with people who are striving to be their best.
Yeah.
So going to your original question, is there a common thread? There's a lot of people who are blind to their own weak spots. And I remember, like, here's one example. I worked with a company who was in business for 10 years. They lost money all 10 years.
Mm.
They were backed by heavy investors that were basically using it as a tax write-off, and they were just losing money. When I went in, 80% of their budget was going to the sector that the owner loved. It was just passion.
Mm-hmm.
So he wouldn't let me have the budget. So I just focused pretty much 95% of my attention and the resources I could get at the law enforcement sector. That company I think it was 11 months, went from losing money every year for 10 years to becoming profitable, then becoming very profitable when I got the rest of the budget to work with, to then being sold to a major international organization. So
Wow.
to answer your question is, I see that time and time again. People assume like I got this business from my father and I've run it for 30 years and we know the business, and they do know their business. You can't beat a person at their own job. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes they get so, what is that? They get so focused and they can't see to the left or to the right, like a horse with blinders on, that they don't see the obvious of what's going on around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. I know I talk to a lot of people now who just, and I think I fell to it as well. And after kind of creating my avatar and really knowing who I was very, very laser focused on
Yeah.
was a huge help. But some people, I mean, they don't. They just kind of throw things against the wall and hope it sticks and hope they can sell to everybody, but yet not being able to, really relate or market to everybody. And I love that. I think it's great, just to be able to find your own purpose and kind of the thing that you just do so, so well. But like you said, it was just something that was almost common. But I think that's so great. So when you go into the businesses, really kind of dig in deep, how long are you spending with them? Does it depend, or do you have a certain amount of time, from start to finish, like you really need to get in and get out and that's your time frame?
So I've never spent more than 18 months with an organization because I don't want to. I get
Mhm.
bored easy and I truly want to see people thrive and succeed.
Mhm.
There's people out here who are consultants listening, and they're like, dude, you're a scumbag. You're ruining it for us. But the fact is, if somebody's helping you, they're teaching you. Teach a man, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for life.
Yeah.
I'm here to help people fish and learn not to fish, but to catch. Right. So
Mhm.
when I come in, I want to help an organization grow. Yeah, grant. Sometimes we got to set the foundation. Sometimes we got to handhold and teach and really guide and train from the ground up. But my goal is to leave them completely like on their own, autonomous. They can run their business on their own. They don't need me.
Mhm.
So they can always call me up, ask for advice, do one-off consulting. We can always have coaching plans ongoing. I do that with a lot of clients because normally if anybody's consulted, 80% of your time is almost on personal matters. The personal stuff interferes with the professional.
Mhm.
So it's almost like I actually got a human services degree in psychology and counseling because I was like, this is going to help me more than an MBA. So long story short, when you're working with people, I see turnaround, like I see progress within 3 months almost every time. And then between that 3 month and 12-month part, we usually achieve what we've set out to achieve, or they're on a freaking great path. Like
Mhm.
the momentum's behind them. I don't think I've ever been with a company where it took longer than 15 months to really turn things around and make them hyper profitable. But again, I only take on clients who are moral, who want to be number one, and who have the ramp up capacity and ability to do so. So, somebody's like, I want to make $20 billion, but their factory can hold 300,000 worth of merchandise. It's not going to happen. So I want to give everybody realistic expectations, and I don't want to work with you forever. I'll take
Mhm.
commission checks forever, but I don't want to work with you forever. I want to see you thrive and go on your own.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's great. And you made a statement of, and since I've met you, I love this about you, and it touches my heart because I'm this way too, is just being able to work with people that are, they have morals, values, they stand behind it, and nobody's going to make them, waver from that. That's huge. I've had that in my entire career. And I can honestly say, I think it's one of the things that has made me so successful. And I didn't even realize what it was because it was just natural. It's just one of those things. I would never want people to treat me how I, wouldn't treat them. I do treat others how I want to be treated, and just those morals, values. God, I don't know. I struggle teaching kids, these days, morals and values and what that actually means versus just screwing people over for a buck or, whatever that means anymore. And I think, my son's almost 17, my daughter's 13, and it's truly one of those things that you just have to really stay up on, because your morals and your values are what's going to set you and propel you forward. And I think that, putting your head on the pillow every night and being able to sleep well, knowing that you've done something right, is great. So I commend you for that. And it's something that I have been, really, really impressed with. So I'm sure the companies that you work with appreciate that as well. That's probably, how do they feel when you make that statement? I'm sure you blatantly make it.
Yeah. And to your listeners right now, I come at everything from a Christian worldview, biblical worldview. I believe the Bible is 100% true. I believe there is a God. And you might be laughing at me now. That's fine. I have friends, I have business associates who are unbelievers, but I trust Christ as my savior, and I tell everybody about him, not to the point of harassment, but the thing is, it's just my everyday. It's who I am. I love and respect you for who you are. You love and respect me for who I am. If I see you screwing a goat, I'm going to tell you that's wrong. If you see me doing something that's wrong, you should tell me. That's friendship, right? That's iron sharpeneth iron. But when it comes to business, I don't work with only quote unquote Christians, right? Because Christian means to be Christ-like. I'll work with anybody, but they got to be moral, and they have to be honest and true. And we have to be able to have a good working relationship.
Yeah.
And the number one question I get, because people are so mistrained, we're brainwashed, not just through the public school system, not just through the government, but even within our churches. Like, oh, don't offend people, or don't talk about politics and religion. Are you stupid? The most important thing is God, and then that transcends into our politics, which transcends into our daily lives. Are you paying attention if you're American right now? We lost our moral compass, and look where we're at. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. I tell everybody where I stand. If you don't like it, great. If you like it, great. And here's a great example of, you want to hear a mind-boggling, just how God worked things out for my benefit. There was a guy, I got to be very careful, super powerful media person today. He made a very bad decision that's basically what's exactly wrong with America, selling out the moral values for money.
Yeah.
I called him out on it, and I called him a moral dirtbag, and I said, what you're doing is wrong, and you're the problem with America. I was polite, but I was direct.
Yeah.
Now, everybody else is like, are you crazy? You just lost clients and thousands. No. The same guy that I called out was working with another person, popular figure, entity, and that person was moral. And he said, I probably am not the right fit for you, but I know who is. And he referred business to me. And now me and this other guy are doing business because he may not like me, but he respects me. And when people come to me all the time, like, you talk about God on your website, you talk about God on your podcast, I'm like, yeah, my life has more purpose than just money. But the beautiful part is, if someone comes to me, there's either going to be a mutual respect, or they're not going to come to me. And that's fantastic, because I don't want to work with a bigot anybody. Anyways, like, I don't say I just want to work with Christians. That would be bigotry. So if you tell me you don't want to work with me because I'm a Christian, you're a bigot. And there's all forms of bigotry. There's one race, the human race. We all just have different shades of tan skin, but God loves us all. And when people are mad about anything, unless I personally harmed you, I'm not responsible. Unless you personally harm me, you're not responsible. So we got to be real focused. So when it comes to business and your question, asking me straight up, how do I handle clients and how does it work for me? I'm 47 years old. It's never once been an issue. It's only benefited me in every aspect of life. Even the best job when I was working for people, the greatest job I ever had, Satan was putting in my head, you went to a Christian college. It was unaccredited. Nobody's going to hire you. This monster company is not even going to consider you. They're going to laugh at you. 3 times, like before I left for the flight to Chicago, while I was in Chicago in the hotel going to the interview, and right seconds before the interview, Satan's tempted me with quit. You're a Christian. This is a major Fortune 100 organization. They're not going to hire you. They're going to laugh at you. I just said, nope. I prayed. I actually quoted a verse out loud because that's what Jesus did. He quoted verses out loud. The dude comes in late from his plane. We meet in the Chicago airport. He takes off his leather coat. First thing he says to me, Amy, is, oh, so I see you went to Pensacola Christian College. No eye contact. So I'm like, right out of the chute, he's coming like, yeah, man. Yeah, I did. And he's like, I went to Bob Jones. And that's another big Christian college. And we immediately hit it off on the commonality of Christ. And I got the job because of my credentials. But that didn't hurt. So exactly the weakness that Satan was trying to convince me I had, it was my greatest open the door strength.
Mm-hmm. Wow. There's so many things that we can take from this. And I just jotted so many things down. You know, you said polite but direct. That is such a key, and it's something that we need to practice and practice and practice, because you can be direct without being derogatory or aggressive or mean, but I don't think people sometimes know how to do that or how that looks. Liked versus respected. Now that's powerful, because I think in this day and age, everybody just wants to be liked. Don't cause any problems. Just make sure that everyone likes you. Don't talk about anything. Don't push back. I mean, you and I have gone over and over this, you know, and I wrote it in my book. I was not scared to write it in my book. You know, it's advocacy and hope. I mean, advocate for yourself and for others. It's, you know, knowing those boundaries and how to position it and politely be yourself. And like you said, if people don't like you and don't want to do business with you, it was probably what was meant to happen. It's not going to be the best relationship anyway. And I think sometimes you may agree that, you know, I meet and have met a lot of business owners in the past that they just wanted everyone to like them. They wanted all the business. They never wanted to offend anyone. They never wanted to be direct. And their business was absolutely, David, it was a circus. And every time I would go in, it was a circus. There were no boundaries. There were no rules. They just wanted to be liked by everybody. But they realized in the end, there were so many things that they could do that would never, you know, really hurt their business. It would help their business in so many ways. They just needed to, you know, step up and be a little bit more direct and advocate for themselves. And then at that moment, their staff respected them more. Their clients respected them. It's crazy. Another thing,
you're spot
faith
on.
and spirituality. I mean, I talk about my faith all the time, and I didn't talk about it enough in the book. I was a little worried about, you know, what people were going to think and how I was going to be judged. And I think I stopped my book 3 or 4 times because I was agonizing over what people were going to think. And it was just in those moments where I just had to push forward, and I had to kind of get my 2 chairs set up each morning and sit there and talk to God and just listen and be like, what is the right thing to do? And in those 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know, I know the right thing to do. And I don't think anybody can make it through life, let alone gigantic challenges and what life can really put on your doorstep if you don't have faith. And faith in something, but, you know, God is definitely mine. And I talk about God and my faith more now than I ever have before, because I've had to come through this and know that I advocated for myself, and it's okay to talk about it. And those that don't want to be around me won't be around me. And it's just, God, it's broadened my scope. But it's really interesting, David. I met this woman, and I introduced you to Amber with Books in Business. She's been in marketing and publishing for about 20 years. And I remember when I first met her, like I would talk about God and she would kind of cringe almost and kind of look at me. And she would never mention, God or anything. And the other day, I remember she was saying something and she put it out in her newsletter and God was there. And she started talking about, a little bit of faith. And I don't feel responsible for it, but I certainly feel as though it was such a great thing for her to hear that it was okay to talk about. Yep. So I think we all just need to shout it from the rooftops. So I'll get off my soapbox, but you just said some massively impressive things that I think people really need to jot down and just take those moments in their 2 sitting positions or their areas where they sit each morning. Or if you don't, definitely start a ritual. It was one of the best things I did, asking God a question or about the day and what it needed to look like and who I needed to do business with and what was lying to me and what was, tainting and being toxic in my head. And all the answers would just come to me. And I mean, it was God. It's God every single morning. And it's just, you can feel this spirituality, this presence. It's huge for me. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I go back more and more. Satan got within the church and he has perverted the minds of people who say they follow Christ. And we believe, especially in business, don't bring politics or religion into business. So wrong. And then people are illiterate. We are illiterate as a culture, myself included. Like, I feel like if you took the norm, I'm like retarded compared to the majority of people where we should be. So when you look at the politics and it says a separation of church and state, the founding fathers believed and wrote God into the U.S. Constitution. Democracy was never once mentioned. Never that word was meant. We are a republic, and we were built to avoid democracy because they know it's a flawed system. Now, where I'm going with this is when you remove God from society and morality, again, from our founding fathers, they said the society will fall. It's happened in every country throughout history, throughout time. And when they wrote the separation of church and state, doesn't mean take God out of America, take God out of the public schools. It means the government doesn't control what is said. It's the Bible is king. The Bible, God is king. So when people have a problem with God, I respect their opinion because I didn't always believe in God. But I'm going to say what I believe and you're going to say what you believe, and we agree to disagree or we agree to agree or whatever. Because every outcome is always the same. There's only 3. I'm right and you're wrong. You're right and I'm wrong, or we're both wrong, but God's always right. And our job's to search for truth. So that's what we need to do. So when you're in business, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, as the power of God to salvation, to everyone that believe it, to the Jew first and also to the Greek, right? One of the apostles said that in Romans. Go, just be you, be who God made you to be. Because trust me, I don't care if you made $10 billion or if you struggled your whole life, when you face God, he's not going to ask you about money. He's going to ask you about what did you do with those opportunities, that time. Time's the most valuable asset. What are we doing with it?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think for anybody who's, been in business for a while or anybody starting out and is new, who's, transitioning and making a whole new leap, there's so many great things that you've said. It's so interesting when you look at people's reasons for quitting or not moving forward. One, I don't know if they have faith in themselves. I think a lot of the time we just don't have that faith in ourselves. But I can tell you, God will give you that faith. God will just be able to lift you and push you and just take you where you're supposed to go. And I feel for anybody that just needs that next step. It's taking this advice and really being able to focus on what their belief is. You and I may have talked about this on the last podcast, but the reason my husband and I took our kids out of public school was because they were just losing God. And we took my daughter out much earlier, just because the public school system didn't want to deal with her. She was on an IEP plan. She was a burden to them. It was absolutely horrific. And then with our son, we took him out a few years later, and he had come to this point where he just we couldn't go to church and then talk about God at home and still have him in this public school system, because the school system, for whatever reason, I could not put my full finger on it until a little bit in. And then it was just absolute. I mean, it was the devil. I mean, it was absolutely just disgraceful of what was happening in the school. But my son couldn't articulate what was happening. I could see it. He was so young and impressionable at, I think, 14 at that time. He just didn't know what was happening to him. And I look back now and I think, God, I'm so glad we took him out at that time. But for those that don't have the ability, it's a struggle. But, we're very impressionable. And I think just taking God out of everything has been so dangerous and so defeating and sad. I mean, the world is really just becoming a place that, I don't know. I think that if you're not really making sure that you're close to God, it's a very fearful world right now.
Yeah, 100. And everything you said, if they're not as exposed to this, or they just haven't connected the dots.
Mm-hmm.
When Amy talks about having faith, the Bible says faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. When we read our Bible, God talks to us. When we pray, we talk to God. So there's all sorts of ways to grow, but faith is God's. You get faith. Hebrews 11 is all about faith. Read Hebrews 11, right? But faith comes from reading your Bible and having a real relationship with God. And then it doesn't matter what happens. You have a foundation that can never be broken to stand on. That's faith. Faith doesn't mean your times are always going to be easy and luxurious. I could be sick and poor tomorrow. I could be a billionaire and super fit. I mean, that doesn't matter. What matters is our relationship with God when we meet him. The rest is nice. It's icing on the cake. But what matters is our relationship with God. But faith that Amy talks about comes from the Bible, comes from our relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. I know I've been able to talk to a lot of women as I've created this community of, Advocacy and Hope. The first one is for women. And I really had to hone in and really try to listen to what God was telling me. I was going all over the place. It was just, I wasn't focused. And I think that moment that I just sat with God one morning and it just came to me. And I thought, I have to reach out to women right now. And it just, all the details came together. So for those that are listening out there, I mean, there's so many things. I mean, you can pick up all kinds of business books and, how to, be successful in business and all kinds of tips. I mean, there's so much information out there. It's overwhelming. But I think that if you don't have a really well-rooted faith, it makes it so much more difficult in today's society. And, I asked my son now, he's been at a Christian academy for 2.5, almost 3 years. And it was really funny. We had a friend at an event, it was about a month ago. I think maybe it was Justin Donald. I talk about Justin Donald all the time. One of our really good friends. He's the creator of the Lifestyle Investor. He's out in Austin, Texas, but he came to my husband and I one day at the pool party that we were at. And he said, I just asked your son, Zach, if he's enjoying Westminster Christian Academy. He said, and the words didn't even get out of my mouth. And he said, oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. It's changed my life. He's a different person. I mean, we wouldn't see this individual, if it weren't for that school. And now he's taking that faith into his business and how he's approaching things. And he has one of his little buddies that goes to school with him that he wants to be a partner with in business. And I asked him why, and he said, he's a really good dude. And I was like, man, that was huge, so many cool things that you can do. But I mean, I've got business books, stacked up in my office. I'm sure everybody does. And you can read how to, set up a successful business and, common things to do. But I think you really need that faith thread. And I realize it now more than ever that God was always with me in the hospital with my daughter, every step of the way. Everything that I thought was just, my gut and intuition, I think it was, but it was God walking with me, just letting me know that, we weren't being left there. He wasn't going to leave us in the dark in those times, bringing us forward. So it's huge. What other tips would you give, somebody that's either been in business and the business isn't doing well, or somebody just starting out with business. Maybe they're starting a podcast, maybe they're starting a business. You've probably received and created so many pearls over the years. But what would you tell people? I mean, faith is definitely huge with God and spirituality and what we've talked about. But, what else would you tell them that would really be those gems and pearls that they could take with them?
Yeah. And so whether it's a business or whether it's a podcast, you start with the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And people who believe in, like, what do they call it? The law of attraction, or, whatever they want to call it. All the good comes from the Bible. And what you're talking about, you read a lot of books. Man, I challenge anybody. You show me one piece of truth that works short term and long, and I'll show you the scripture and verse where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has anything new under the sun. All truth comes from God. So for business owners or people who want to be business owners or they want to be podcasters, start with the vision, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And the vision isn't just, this is the goal I want, but it's the heart intent and the motivation why. I tell people all the time, if you're trying to podcast for money, you're going to lose fast, because most people, pod fade happens after 7 episodes. That means you get excited, you buy the equipment, you record, you go out, you release 7 episodes, and then you realize how lonely it is behind the camera. And because you don't have a purpose, because you don't have a focus beyond money, which is currency, you fail and you stop and you quit because you never had a good purpose. So that's why I always tell people, start with the vision and then reverse engineer to where you're at, business or podcast. And then when you're like, okay, for instance, I can't disclose the details. Last month, I told you I was in Tennessee.
No.
I was in Tennessee visiting a friend from college and client. We've done business. We've been friends for years. We've done business together. We're actively doing business together. But one of his businesses is something I'm very interested in starting here in Florida. So I went up for a week, worked for free, learned every aspect of the business I could to see, is this what God wants me? Do I like it? What aspects of it do I like? Do I feel capable? You got to be willing to take some sacrifice. So to take a week off, that's, depending on your situation, that can be a huge sacrifice, but it's time. It's 1 week out of the year I took off. So do your research is the bottom line. And it can be as simple as talking to people, but don't talk to, like, I don't want to be offensive. There's some very, very great people who have suffered catastrophic loss. But the majority people who are financially broke are because they made bad decisions. Okay. I've been broke because circumstances, nothing I did wrong. There's people out there who are alone. They got divorced. It has nothing to do with their fault. But what I'm saying is that's not the norm. There really are people who have sickness and illness and they ate right their whole life, but something happened to them environmentally or usually emotionally. Something so emotionally traumatized happened to them. Doesn't matter how many, supplements they take, they're going to get cancer because they're being eaten up by grief they haven't dealt with. So what I'm saying is, in general, go for the best. Find the best. Make a list of 50 people who are just the best in the industry you're in, and then reach out to them. If one of them reaches back out, you got a gold mine on your hands. So learn from the best. Learn from the people who are succeeding. Like, don't go ask financial advice to a homeless person. Or somebody who's struggling month to month, And again, there could be a great investor. There's a lot of people who lose it all and make back 10 times more, lose it all. So I'm not saying be an ignorant jerk or be judgmental. I'm saying use good judgment. That's another misconstrued statement within the church. Don't judge. Are you retarded? This whole book is people saying this is right from wrong. This is good judgment. It says to correct one another, right? So use good judgment. Don't be judgmental. Judgmental is your opinion. Bible is God's opinion. That's the one that matters. And that's actually not even his opinion. It's fact. But so when you're starting a business, have a vision, go to the fundamentals, learn from people who are achievers, not just talkers. And then when you're doing it, freaking have a plan and work the plan.
Yeah.
Don't jump around. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid. Like I love the stock market. I'm getting more and more into the stock market.
Mhm.
And I'm getting feedback, Amy. I'm sorry if that's, I don't know if that's on my side or your side. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. I don't hear any feedback on my side.
Okay. So the stock market's great because when people are running, but no, that's a solid company. This is just a run on the stock. You buy more. Warren Buffett talks about it, all the great investors talk, not great men, great investors. They talk about how you turn in. And so like there was just a stock that I'm not gonna lie, I bought it $1.15 and then it dropped to 67 cents. But I'm like, yeah, I need to buy more. That's the
Mhm.
right decision to buy more. So it could go down to zero. But I'm like, no, I should buy more. And then just today, after the weekend, it went up like 20%. So if you had 10 grand, you put that in, you just made $2,000 in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is business is very much the same. Um, you take calculated risk. You look where the opportunity is. You invest your time. You invest your resources. And like the Bible talks about the people, the talents. You have a guy with 5 talents, he makes 5. You got a guy with 2 talents, he makes 2. You got a guy with 1, he buries it. That guy gets chastised by God. So even if you think you might lose, if you're doing your best and you're truly trying, you reap what you sow. You're probably going to prosper.
Yeah.
But at least try. So you pray, glorify God, praise God, and it works out.
Yeah, and I love it. And I put this in my detail sheet. I mean, failure is our best feedback. I mean, it will help you pivot quickly, but I think we need to be able to look at everything with an objective, mind frame and be able to, I think, not bring too many emotions into it, but you have to use your head. And I think, I'm talking to a lot of women now that they're burned out of their job. They're highly successful, but they either want to start a side gig, they want to do something, or their business is just it's never gone well. And so I think that just trusting your instincts, but knowing when to pivot and how to pivot and not stay there too long. Doing something is great, and if you're I always tell my kids, and I always go back to this, and I tell everybody that I talk to now, yes, being passionate and consistent and determined and dedicated is great. But if you run 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction, you've just
Yep.
run 100 miles in the wrong direction. You need to be able to take those instincts and that failure. I think failure is just such a great thing. You know that it didn't work and you pivot and you do something else. You don't quit it altogether. You don't scrap it and throw it in the trash can. You can just pivot very quickly. But I think you were right on. Having that vision is really, really important. Having that big idea or vision and sticking to it, and just knowing kind of that avatar and your why. Something new that I'm doing right now, I'm currently going through classes to be certified in some different things, and alignment is one that I'm getting certified in right now. And it is just riveting how I was completely out of alignment for so long. And I'd fall out of alignment. And I think we all do, and we get back into alignment. But creating that why was huge for me, and not trying to get my why back that I used to have. As we grow, and we need to grow, as we get older, we need to grow and change and really lean into that change. So I'm sure you've had to do that so many times, and probably because of your success, you've had to work with so many different personalities and businesses. I mean, you've got to pivot quick and try to figure out, personalities and how to work with them best, I would assume.
100%. And right now I'm constantly changing and
Mhm.
growing. And like you said, I agree completely. You don't fail, you learn. Or you do fail. I mean, let's be
Yeah,
real. Let's be
yeah,
human. You
yeah.
fail, but it's a learning
It's a
experience. I
learning.
just invested in myself.
Mhm.
I just lost $250,000, and that was a great lesson, because you know what? There's no way I'm
Mhm.
making that happen again.
Yep.
Right? So
Mhm.
you don't fail, you
Mhm.
learn, but you want to stop those lessons as much as you can, right? But
Mhm.
when it comes to changing, okay, it's today we're recording this for people who are watching this down the road. It is what, July
Mhm.
8th, 2024.
Mhm.
In 2 to 5 years, the business I'm in is going to be gone. Marketing and sales consulting
Mhm.
will still be there, but a massive part of our hands-on reoccurring revenue
Mhm.
is building websites and marketing
Mhm.
in like, let's say, social media. People are familiar with that. SEO
Yep.
optimization. Okay, AI is changing all that. So if I don't plan right now,
Yeah.
looking ahead 2 to 5 years, I'll be out of business.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to be changing. One of the greatest, I'm not saying I agree with everything this guy writes. I'm not saying I agree with his philosophies, but just the book, Who Moved the Cheese?
Mm-hmm.
That is a great book. The first part's a setup,
Yep.
the second part's a story, the third part's the summary. If you don't get the first or the third part, you need to go back to the basics. But the story is about these mice and men, and they go through and they find the cheese, and the people who are satisfied and sit there till it disappears, those people are frustrated and lost. But the ones who see the writing on the wall, like, hey, every day our cheese source is going down, let's find new cheese. Those are the people that thrive and have fulfilled lives. There's cartoons. You can watch a 2 or 3 minute cartoon of it. YouTube, Who Moved My Cheese cartoon. But what I'm saying is you gotta, like Amy says, you gotta keep growing, you gotta keep moving forward. And can I say something else? It's come up twice in the conversation, and this goes to doing the right thing versus being liked. Okay. Men and women are equal 100%. Men is not better than woman. Woman is not better than man, but we have different roles. Kidney and liver have different roles in my body, and I need them both. Right. So when you mention this, your focus is women. It should be women because you are a woman. My focus should be men. Why? Because I'm a man. And the thing is, if I'm consulting women, it opens a door for adultery and fornication and forming relationships that shouldn't be there. And women consulting with men does the same thing. So let's stop being this bull crap friends type of mentality, what we watch in Hollywood. They're the most immoral people behind closed doors, and we're sucking in their doctrine, even within the church. So listen, men should be consulting, coaching, and working with men for the most part. Now, again, in everyday business, I'm not talking about a woman can't be a fantastic coach or consultant. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying in that private coaching and consulting, I believe, and I've seen men with men, women with women. Now, going back to that one more time, we're made differently. Men and women are built differently. So, Amy, something you said like 5 minutes ago really struck a chord with me where I'm saying this is I know so many men and women who work hard to achieve someone else's dream, to achieve what the world says is success. And when they get there, they're empty and suicidal because they're like, I just worked my whole life for nothing. And if you really think about midlife crises, especially in America, we're born, we're put in a crappy education system for freaking what? We start at 5 to 18, 13 years. We get out, we're told go right to college, go right to work, and we're put in a grinder. And then we get married and we start having kids. By the time things slow down, we're in our 40s. That's the midlife crisis. That's when you actually take a moment to think about, what does God want for me? What do I find fulfillment in? Where should I actually be? So when you were talking about success earlier and women specifically in business, how we're built based on what I read in the Bible, what I've seen in women my whole life, what I've seen in men my whole life, there's just deep heart things that bring you fulfillment. And there's things that bring me, like every study in the world on relationships, they have all these studies. Women want to make a house a home. They want to feel understood. There's fundamental. Guys want food and sex. Like, it's really simple. We're like wired differently. So when it comes to career, a lot of women who are professionally minded, but they live off somebody else's dream, they achieve somebody else's goals, and then they end up empty. So all I'm saying is make sure you're focused on what God wants for you and what you want for you, because so what if you're a CEO? You could be happy as a janitor and live a joy-filled life with purpose, literally cleaning toilets. And you could have a really good life. But in America, we're brainwashed that that's not possible. That is totally possible. And I know people personally who are super happy that make less than $30,000 a year.
Well, I mean, I think it's eye-opening when you travel to other countries, and no matter, where I've been, and, my family and I will take all kinds of, off the beaten path tours and things like that. And We have literally witnessed some of the happiest people on the planet. And we're driving on these desolate roads, and there's just little sticks for homes and no electricity, no running water. I mean, there's nothing, but they're so grateful. And I remember maybe it was I'd say probably 12 years ago, one of our first trips, and I can't even remember where it was. I don't know if it was Costa Rica or somewhere else, but I remember just those aha moments of like, I'm going to need to stay close to God, or I'm going to get really lost. I'm going to get really, really lost in this world that pushes you towards something that is just like you said, do this, here's your strategy, do this. We, talking all day long to friends of, that are prepping their kids, 4, 5, 6 years in advance for college, and their every moment is spent on where they're going to go to college and dump, $96,000 a year on a degree, and just, oh, well, we have to do this. And it sends everybody into that loneliness. I mean, that's why, what is it? I don't even know the statistics now, David. I think it's way past 75, 76% of people dislike what they do during the day. And that's probably their career, their job, whatever they're doing. I think that's so sad. I remember reading some statistics, many, many months back when I kind of started my communities and going, God, I mean, what does this look like? Like this can't be it. This just can't be all that there is in life. And I think people really need to understand that once they have those conversations with themselves, with God, being quiet, listening, those answers will come, and you have to jot them down, write them down, keep them on sticky notes, keep them on your mirror, keep them on your computer, keep them on your dash, reminding yourself every single day, because every moment something will take you away from that. No matter what, it's just how life is.
Yep.
I think busy. It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And too busy. That's another one that, again, even if you say I always say quote unquote Christian, because most people say that Christians today don't live Christ-like, but within the church, you're in the church. It's like, go, but not go for God's standard. It's go for, let's do this and let's do that. And let's have this and let's have that. Everybody's so busy. They're missing the whole point of life. And they're so distracted. I believe it's a satanic designed script. And he's trying to keep us in bondage through being too busy, even in the auspice of what seems good. Like, we're going to do vacation Bible school. And we're going to have, dude, you can have a vacation Bible school, love on the kids, and just have like pictures and papers that you hand drew, and they're going to be fine. They don't need fireworks and Clydesdale horses. This is a huge, huge waste. If you want somebody to genuinely love God, show them God's genuine love. Don't show them a damn concert. Okay. And I believe that. Anybody can be saved in any way, come to know Christ. But the people I know, and for myself included, was that genuine real time with God, or when someone came up and discipled me and explained the Bible to me. Those are the times where the genuine conversions happen, not when there's a fireworks show and a concert. Like, again, like all these churches, I love church. I go to church. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But there's so many churches. I actually had a guy tell me he tried coming. This was I want to say it was around 2016, 2017. I meet this guy. He's not a Christian, not a believer. And then a year later, I found out he tried to commit suicide. Wow. I run into him like, hey, man, how you doing? Trying to talk to him, encourage him. And then I run to him another year later. He's like, oh, man, I'm going to this church. It's fantastic. It's like a rock concert every Sunday. There's smoke and drums and this and that. It's fantastic. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. I'm like, well, how's it preaching? And he literally looked at me like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. So he found a social setting that he felt accepted in, which is great, but that doesn't change his eternity. That changes his present. And you can you can go join a chess club and have friends right now. You can go to a poker room and have friends right now. But the eternity and the real brother and sisterhood and the fellowship, that comes with a real relationship. And our churches are failing us. And as a member of a church, I'm failing us as part of the church. So you just got to keep being the best person you can be and trickle it up and down.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And, something that I always tell my kids, and I tell everybody that I work with now, and I think on every single one of my my podcast, I mean, we have to be very intentional on who we spend our time with. And, you'll find people, and I find them all the time now, they're like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I hang out with who I like. I hang out with who makes me feel good. I hang out with who compliments me. You are the average of the top 5 people that you spend the most time with. And look at those people and write them down. And literally there is your life. And, I've told my son this numerous times, and that literally changed his life of like, oh my goodness, that intentionality just was, it was there. It was so cool that these aha moments, but I don't think that many of us stop to think about that because we just want to be liked. We just want to feel good about ourselves. We don't want to we don't want to push the buttons. We don't want to irritate anyone. We don't want to nothing. We don't want to make any rustling whatsoever. I mean, that's how the society is going. And I think especially with business and who you do business with and who you surround yourself with, it is extremely important. I'm sure you learned that at a very young age, but I think the sooner people can learn that and digest it, it's not an insult, and you don't have to throw those friends away, but you need to be very, very intentional and specific on who you spend your time with, because I've talked a lot about putting myself in isolation and that glass castle for so many years. And then, I was bullied and no one wanted me to talk about what I was, going through. That my family, just no support whatsoever. They just didn't want to talk about it. Don't cause problems. Just talk about nothing. Life is great. It was just, I was really, really just spiraling down a very dangerous avenue. And I think many people can relate with me out there. And you have to find yourself. You have to know who you are. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to really just be confident, but paying attention to who you hang out with is huge.
Agree. 100%. And right now, there's so many depths and there's so many like business, you want to have good network. You have a great network of people you can trust. They have a network of people they can trust. It just continues to grow. But personally, it's the same thing. You have somebody immoral, they're going to take you all down. The rotten apple rots the rest of the apples. You don't make that apple better unless God can intervene, but he gives us free will. So that rotten apple would have to consciously change. But right now, I'm seeing so many families get involved in immorality. And again, I sin. Sometimes what's it called? Not consciously sin. I sin on purpose, right? Like I made that bad decision. That's a sin. It's wrong. And then I go back, I get right with God. I get right back with the people who I've offended. And that's part of life. I'm not saying anybody is going to be holy, but we're to strive. Jesus says, be perfect as I am perfect. People get those terms mixed up. Holy is without sin. Perfect means to be whole. So we are to be perfect. We are to be whole. When we screw up, we get it right. When we sin, we get it right. A mistake is taking a left when you shouldn't take a right when you're driving somewhere.
Yeah.
Having sex with your friend's wife, that's a sin. All right. Let's just be real. So you got to get that right. And that can cause generations of pain for lots of people. But when we're seeing like families now who are supposed to be Christian, they're living exactly like the world. You're not a Christian. And that's just a fact. That's all there is to it. And from the pastor to the janitor and everybody in between, it's just, we got to live like Christ. And how do we know what Christ is like? We stay in the word and we pray and we talk to him and we ask him to correct us. And there's a difference between conviction and guilt. Conviction is like, Dave, I love you. You're doing wrong. You got to get this right. Guilt is, oh, you're so terrible. You should be ashamed of yourself. Why do you even try? Guilt and shame is from Satan. Conviction and the love of Christ constrains me. And that's a verse in the Bible I really misunderstood till I was in my 20s. And the love of, I always thought constrain was restrain. No, restraining is holding back. Constraining is moving forward. So the love of Christ constrains me. It loves me. It urges me forward. It helps me to be bold and take steps I wouldn't take. So that's the love of Christ. It's always a powerful but loving, forward moving force. It's not beating you up. So if you have something in your life, whether you've done it or you're feeling it, like there's people, some of us have had abuse in our past and we feel like it's our fault. Satan tries to trick us. It's our fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Give it to God and then move on. If you're still hearing bad thoughts, that's Satan.
Mm-hmm.
God would never do that to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very true. Well, David, we're getting ready to wrap up. It's been so fun to have you here, and I love the conversation because I think it's so needed. More and more and more people need to honestly just go back and listen to this over and over and over again and put it in play, give themselves grace, take the silence they need to take a step back, just listen to what the universe and what God is telling them and what the right thing is. And your business will be successful if you will do that. I tell people all the time, do what is in your heart, but make sure it's the right thing. So I think this has been wildly successful for anybody to just kind of peek in, but definitely over and over again they can find pearls throughout this. So where can people find you if they want to do business with you, connect with you, contact you? What's the best way?
Yeah, almost everything I do, I put at davidpasqualone.com. So if you're watching this, you can see my little ticker at the bottom, davidpasqualone.com, or check out Amy's show notes. And you can look at, I put a little bit of the business up there. I know it's crazy, but I'm a marketing guy. I don't really market myself because I go by referrals, all these years, just referrals.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people say that, "Oh, I'm a referral-based business," and they're putting $4 million into marketing. I really
Mhm.
don't. Like, my marketing consists of maybe posts. Like, I love My Pillow and you love My Pillow.
Mhm.
I love a great American organization. They give us
Yep.
affiliate commissions, but I've supported them for 4 years before I got a penny from them. But they're awesome, right? So I support a great American company who supports America. You get stuff 30%, 80% off if you use Amy's promo code or my promo code,
Mhm.
and everybody wins, right? So that's the kind of marketing I do. But anyways, they go to davidpasqualone.com, they can get our business, they can get our podcast, we have an awesome free blog with content from affiliates. You can get content I wrote. I haven't wrote in a while. I need to start writing more videos I made. Another big one we never talked about is my health. Man, I struggled with depression for years. I told you that.
Mhm.
And I didn't talk to you the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
No, did I talk to you about what happened the last 6 months?
No, you have
Okay.
not.
Okay, so really, this is super important. I made a short
Yeah.
video about it.
Love it.
So when I went through a terrible time in 2014 to 2018, my blood pressure was off the roof. Or 2014, 26, 15. Then I started working out and my blood pressure went down. So then I stopped working out in 2018. My blood pressure was getting high, so I started taking a drug. So, anyways, long story short, the whole time that I always through my life start with a low level depression. But when I was under high stress and I started taking blood pressure medicine, I thought I was just really depressed because of stress. This year, I told you my business just went crazy since December of last year. And I was working 60, 70, 80 hours, sometimes 100 hours a week just to keep up.
Yeah.
Well, my blood pressure, I noticed, started going up because I wasn't processing it internally, mentally right, right? I was letting it get to me. You can work 100 hours and still have peace, but I was like taking too much ownership as a man. And again, I was off balance. Like you talked about, I forget the term you used, but the Bible.
Alignment.
Alignment. Yeah. The biblical term is balance. And that's a false balance is abomination of the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And every aspect of our life, cover to cover in the Bible, Old Testament, New, talks about balance. That's what we need. And that's what we should strive for every day. So long story short, I'm like, I cannot slow down as in my earthly sinful mind. I cannot take time to go to the gym, false. And I start taking this high blood pressure medicine. I got so depressed again. Like when I was going through this crazy stuff in 2014, 2015, and then in 2018. So the whole time, Amy, I thought I was under depression from circumstances. I didn't process the circumstances right. So my blood pressure went up. It was 100% the blood pressure medicine making me depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was I'm like, I'm a human guinea pig. I put it on my website. So I stopped, instantly got better. Waited a week for it to clear my system, took it again, instantly depressed. I did that 3 times. 100% correlation. Now, you look at the amount of Americans taking blood pressure medicine, it's ridiculous.
Mhm.
You look at the number of Americans suffering depression, ridiculous.
Mhm.
Huh? You think there's a correlation that these big pharma companies and the government knowingly are cashing in on? 100% in my opinion. So, anyways, if you're listening and you struggle with depression and high blood pressure, I would seriously drink a lot of water, work out, take healthy supplements, and get off everything you can as fast as you can. I am not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, but I'm a human who went through it. And for me, that blood pressure medicine makes me depressed. And for years, I struggled and thought it was me. I paid for counseling, thousands and thousands of dollars. And all it was a damn pill.
So interesting that you say that. I mean, I've been in the medical industry for 20 years. I did go into pharmaceuticals for a very short amount of time and literally saw the most evil world that I have ever seen. The pharmaceutical companies create the problem and then they create something to try to take care of the problem. I remember when I was pregnant with my son and I gave birth and I went to my OBGYN and just said, I'm just kind of, I don't know, I'm just not right. Just something's not right. Puts me on a depression medication. I'm like, I'm not depressed. I don't know. I'm just a little anxious. I'm not, I don't know. This is new to me. Like, what do I do? Puts me on Effexor XR and I almost committed suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And getting off of it, I would be laying in bed. So they tell you that you have to come back in so they can give you all these other drugs to wean you off of it. And I remember laying in bed and I hear like gunshots in my head night after night. And then finally they dissipated after several weeks and I weaned myself off of it. And I've never taken another drug ever. And that's been 17 years. I refuse. That was one of the reasons, with my daughter, we chose to go the right direction, but I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's why those drugs have 20 pages of safety issues and, adverse events and that sort of thing. And one thing that I really didn't put too much in the book, and I'll leave it at this, but it was a really important thing to talk about, but I was so bullied and I was so scared from the hospital system. It was at St. Louis Children's here in St. Louis, Missouri, was when I called meetings with the heads of all the departments. And I remember one specific meeting was, she's on my daughter's on 16 drugs. I know that they all have adverse events. And I think this one's doing this. And I had it all documented. David, they had the audacity to sit there in that board meeting and tell me that the drugs had no adverse events against each other or one another, that there was nothing that I was saying was true whatsoever, no adverse events whatsoever. The next time I came back to the meeting, I told them I would bring my research, they could bring their research, and then I would take it into my own hands and I would ruin their hospital, ruin them. And they brought a stack that was 12 inches tall of adverse events. I'm telling people this for a reason. You just need to read. You need to be very aware. Listen to what David said, because it is absolutely 100% true. And I think that if people will just realize a healthy lifestyle, they can do it. Stay away from alcohol. It's a depressant. It's a huge depressant.
Yeah.
It's very, we could probably go on a tangent, but I think that people, they need to pay attention to that immensely, because there are, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on those types of drugs.
Yeah, and I want to tell, if you don't mind, I have 2 minutes to share one more really important story. Okay, so what do you call a doctor that graduates first in their class?
I don't know.
Doctor. What do you call a doctor that graduates last in their class?
Doctor.
Okay. So first off, you have to realize, if you're listening to this, the best and the worst based on academics are still a doctor. Who goes in and asks for credentials, and what's your success rate dealing with clients?
Yeah.
Okay. I did that once to a doctor and he's like, "How dare you?" I'm like, "How dare you what?" I'm like, I'm a marketing guy. I'm thinking, you think people give me $3 million to invest for them and they don't ask my credentials? I'm giving you my life. What are your credentials? So don't be afraid to ask. And I really believe 2 out of 10 are dirtbags, 2 out of 10 are amazing, and 6 of them are just okay. They're your everyday doctors, right?
Yeah.
But when you are working with a physician, even people who are like, I know people who are truly, I believe they've trusted Christ as their savior, they're conservative politically, they're sound thinkers,
Yeah.
but they are indoctrinated by the
Mhm.
medical system.
Mhm.
And they believe the lies. And the COVID scandal is a perfect example. I had one night, there was 8 of us on my patio. Behind me, you just see a screen, but that's actually a patio. I live in Pensacola on the beach. I thank God for that. We're
Mhm.
sitting there, we're on the patio, we're hanging out, and there was a high-end physician and a high-end, she worked in like the, what's it called? Like not just a nurse in the emergency department, but like the brain surgeries and super
Wow.
intricate things. So these
Mhm.
are 2 high level individuals.
Mhm.
And we're talking about the COVID vaccine. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. There's no documentation that it works. There's actually documentation that it doesn't. It's dangerous. And I'm going based on facts and common sense.
Mhm.
Amy, when they spoke, they said the same words in the same way with even the same inflection. And I waited till they were done. 2 different hospitals.
Mhm.
But the propaganda from the government and the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies were just being bashed in their face. I said, let me ask you a question. Did you ever see an abused child? And I said, when they go in, they talk, if they're saying just talking, that's what's going on. But if they're saying verbatim, word for word, what the parent's saying, they're
Mhm.
being coached, they're being indoctrinated. I said, don't you think it's maybe curious that you ladies cite the exact same data with the exact same points, with the exact same inflection in your voice?
Mhm.
And they just looked and like, no, the vaccine's totally safe. 8 months later, that lady comes to me, the same one,
Mhm.
and she's crying. And she's like, I got to tell you, I was totally wrong about that vaccine.
Mhm.
She's like, my own office manager, I was told by my hospital, a large chain in the country, to fire her if she didn't take the vaccine.
Mhm.
She took the vaccine and was sick for 30 days. It was almost exactly to the 30th day. She's putting brochures up, or manuals up in the files up in the office. Her nose bleeds and they could not get it to stop. They take her in the hospital she works at and she's got internal bleeding everywhere and she almost died. And this is a woman that was totally healthy until she took the vaccine. So I don't know if you want to edit this off your show because you don't get censored, but man, there's a real problem. And listen, I don't care if you want to believe the vaccine's okay, but give real data, be honest about it, and think about common sense. I can't drink cyanide and rat poison and arsenic and be okay. So
Mhm.
if you're telling me you're giving me poisons and I'm going to benefit from it, 2 plus 2 does not equal 17. It equals 4. And so we got to use common sense. And we have Dr. William Montgomery was my doctor. When I was 18, they found a tumor in my head that was there for years. They took it
Mhm.
out twice. It grew back. And he looked at me and he said, I might have all the PhDs in the world, but nobody's got a higher PhD than what you have for your own body. He's like, listen to yourself and God. So like Amy's hope and advocacy, you at the end of the day, listen to everybody's advice, get wisdom, get good
Mhm.
knowledge, hopefully, but make your own decisions because if you win or lose, succeed or fail, live or die, do it on the terms between you and God. Don't
Yeah.
do it on some doctor so you can get a BMW payment.
Mhm. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that's definitely something we could probably talk forever on. And I think
Yeah.
people out there just they need to be very aware, but they need to trust their gut instinct. They need to have that conversation with God. They need to do what's right. They need to do what they feel is absolutely right. Yeah, and that goes to everything that they do. If they'll just take that thread through everything that they're doing in life, take God with them, because I'm telling you, it will just, it'll make things so much better. But yeah, I agree. It's a sad situation of what has occurred and what is not going to get any better. And that's sad that it's not going to get any better. And, I didn't talk about it in the book, but I did talk about it right after I started my podcast. Was the hospitals, they're big business. If all their beds aren't filled and they aren't literally giving drugs to everybody and scheduling everybody for surgeries, they're out of business. The moment you take that first pharmaceutical drug, they probably write on their script patient for life. I mean, it's just what it is. And we just have to, and I talk about it on a lot of my community meetings, and now with a lot of these women, of taking care of yourself and the better health and mind, body, and spirit. And it starts, with so many different places, but you couldn't be more spot on. And I love that you let people know that you did a trial on that drug, just so you could prove to yourself and be like, okay, is this accurate? Let me try again. Is this accurate?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No coincidence, no circumstantial evidence, 100% correlation in my life that when I take that damn high blood pressure medicine, and I went through I think I have a record somewhere of 8 different ones I tried. And this was the one that had I didn't think had a side effect, but I really didn't see results either. I was just taking it to be safe. And all those years wasted of depression. And then what do the doctors want to do? Oh, we'll take this antidepressant. I had trigeminal neuralgia where I got nerve damage in my face, and it was extreme and severe. This was a totally separate circumstance. They prescribed me in 2009 an antidepressant like you. It made me so freaking depressed. So then they're like, okay, we'll take this anti-seizure drug. I'm like, whoa. You give me an antidepressant, it makes me depressed. Now you want to give me an anti-seizure? What do you want me to flop on the ground like a fish? Get that out of here. So I'm like, no, I'm not taking this. I'll deal with the pain, and God got me through it. And thank God I am the rare anomaly where the trigeminal neuralgia went from a daily 8 or 9 to a 1 or 2. So I live, consciously without pain, and I don't take any drugs. And again, I'm not going to say it was easy, but I worked and did everything I could to get through it without drugs. And I know you're a big Young Living proponent, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So go to Amy, ask her about Young Living. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just take what my girlfriend tells me. But that stuff works, And then there's a lot of holistic things like the Berkey, the water filter. That's fantastic. I'm not getting paid to say this. I say it because it's real. That company recently got shut down by the FDA because they're scumbags and they don't want you to be healthy. The Food and Drug Administration certifies and approves poison, but yet it bans companies like the Berkey who clean your water, proven for 25 years, making people healthier. So listen, you have government, you have education, you have healthcare, and you have pharmaceutical companies. All of them are the most inefficient and corrupt systems on our planet, and those are the ones pulling the strings right now. So, you got to be your own advocate and just trust God as your foundation for hope and strength.
You do. You really, really do. And I think people really need to just listen to this, start doing their research a little more. I talk about it in my book. I talk about it a lot on podcasts. I'm now writing coaching classes on it for what we've learned for the essential oils. And I will take a side note. We were threatened by the hospital and told that we had to stop everything that we were doing for our daughter. No essential oils, no vitamins, nothing that would help her, nothing. We still get threatening letters till today of if we're not going to take care of her, they will take care of her. She has to get her flu shots. They tell us she had to get the COVID shot. They brought us I remember asking for studies, kind of like you did, David. I was on a phone call. It was a Zoom call with one of the physicians. And I just remember being so angry looking at these clinical pieces of data and saying, you can send a letter to my daughter who has a rare genetic FAP gene. And I think she was maybe nine at the time when they started sending these letters and telling us it's okay. She needs to get this COVID shot. Here's clinical data saying it's safe for her. It was these patients were between the ages of 80 and 86. They did not have FAP, but yet those were the clinical trials and data that we were being sent telling us that our 8-year-old daughter with genetic, FAP genetic cancer gene needed to pay attention to so she could take this COVID vaccine. It's crazy. You need to use your common sense, and everybody just needs to stand up for themselves, take a step back, and do their own thing. So
and I know we got to go, but can I end this on one really important note? That if you take nothing away, I'm going to offend many people right now. Don't be weak. Mm-hmm. Don't be weak. Don't make excuses for not fighting, because this is the deal. Everywhere in the Bible, when Jesus was abused and picked on, he took it. But everywhere in the Bible where God was dishonored, he fought. Mm-hmm. And when people say, like, I don't like conflict, like people have told me, like, oh yeah, you speak up on anything, you like conflict. I don't like conflict, but I'm not going to be weak and back down. If I literally in Jamaica a couple months ago, this is a true story. I had like 6 guys about to jump me. I just walked right up to their face and I'm like, do we have a problem? And I went right to do we have a problem? It looks like we have a problem. I said, there's a spotter up ahead. There's a guy that's been tailing me for 2 blocks and you guys are just getting up. I said, let's get this over with. I think we got a problem. Like, oh, no, we don't have a problem. I'm like, you sure we don't have a problem? So what I'm saying is I don't like conflict, but you got to face it head on. And that disarmed real fast. Like, oh, no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. I'm like, okay, we don't have conflict. Then I'm going to walk away and nobody's going to come after me, or I'm coming specifically after you. And I'm like, okay, now that we don't have conflict, where can I get a cigar? And they're like, oh, down the road, right? So when you're in America, we're brainwashed that standing up and doing the right thing causes conflict. It causes fighting. It causes, oh, I'm afraid. Fight. Who cares if you're afraid? That's what courage is. Courage is doing the right thing because it's the right thing, not how you feel. Feelings are the lights that come on in your car display. That doesn't mean you always have to stop if your windshield washer's low. It doesn't mean you have to stop if your gas is low. You keep going to a gas station. But you can't, when you have conflict, just quit. And you can't be a doormat because you're afraid to speak up. So I know there's been people who've been abused. I know there's people who've been beat up and spit out, and they've had terrible lives. And I understand, but what I'm telling you is go to God and ask for strength and speak up and fight for right. Again, Jesus didn't necessarily fight for himself, but he always stood up for God. And when we're walking through life and we're saying we're Christians, we're Christ-like, if somebody says transgender is okay, no, it's not. It's mental illness. And if you actually love these people, you'll tell them that and help them through it. If you're telling me a child who doesn't even know what they should eat for lunch the next day should be able to decide if they have a sexual orientation in first grade, you are crazy, because children shouldn't think about heterosexual sex in first grade, let alone homosexual sex. So when you're going through life and you're looking at things around you and you're saying, well, I don't want to get involved. I don't want conflict. Nobody wants conflict, but you're the cause of evil growing if you don't stand up against it. That's it. I tell that to my kids growing up. I tell it to my friends. I tell it to business people. I tell it to myself. If I watch evil and do nothing, I'm as equal or more guilty of that because I've done nothing. So that's something. If I had a closing thought, is don't be weak. Fight with God's strength, but fight for him and love others. What are the top 2 commands? Love God, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's what we should be doing. And when people go around and they're lying and stealing and cheating, and you're not saying that's wrong, you're part of the problem.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's a great place to end. I think people need to think about that. Weak. It's not taught any longer. I fear for what our generations to come are going to look like, because there's just this weak stability in it. So I think for anybody, just stand up for yourself. Yeah, don't be weak. And David, thank you so much for coming on again, because it was great to catch up with you. It has been great to kind of, still connect with you over the last several months. You're one of my favorite people. I just appreciate you so much. And I love our conversations because they're so real and they're so needed and necessary. And I think more people just need to be like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Know that you're not alone out there and you can do this. You can come
100%.
join my community. You can connect with David if you've you need anything, just you're not alone. So appreciate your time. Thank you guys. And David, thank you. And can't wait till next time to see what else is going on. All right.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
guys. Bye.